Hey, we needed a bug bounce back week, and it's starting off with a bang. Auburn finally ends the defensive coordinator search, and we talk about at the end of the day, are we better now defensively, and are we better now offensively moving into 2024 than we were the previous year? I'm pumped. It's episode 14 of the Top Button podcast. So button up and let's get rolling. But before we get started, we got to give a shout out to our boy, Ford Stokes at Active Wealth Management, activewealth.com. Reach out to him today. We've already got listeners calling, getting their customized plans put together. Not a cookie cutter plan. There, he's going to take your goals, what your desires are, and he's going to put a plan together to help get you where you want to be. Stop. You've worked hard to earn your money, so let Ford protect that and help it grow throughout the years to get you where you want to be at the end of the race. So reach out for him today, activewealth.com, Ford Stokes. Tell him War Eagle. He's a big Auburn guy, and he loves to help everybody, but especially Auburn people as well. So tell him I sent you. That's Active Wealth Management, Ford Stokes, activewealthmanagement.com. All right, guys, the wait is finally over. I waited so late to record this, to record this show, and it paid off. Auburn finally has a completed football coaching staff. They finally made the hire that we've been waiting on, and that is former Texas A&M defensive coordinator DJ Durkin, a seasoned veteran in the SEC, and what was kind of widely thought of as maybe your 1B or 2 in this coaching search to Chris Kiffin of the Houston Texans. So I'm going to be honest, guys. This is not a homer. This is not being just a complete bug at all. But from the time his name surfaced, I was all in. I wanted him from the time his name surfaced. I showed public support because I always trust Hugh in the decisions he makes. If Chris Kiffin was the guy, I was going to be fired up for him. I could see the appeal. I understand he's got a great lineage. He's got a incredible amount of experience in the NFL. They don't just hire. There's only 32 defensive line coaches in the NFL. Okay, it's not like there's just hundreds of dudes, hundreds of bums they just throw in there. There's the elite of the elite when it comes to coaching, and he's worked with some of the best for multiple teams. And I get it. I don't know that if I got one of those jobs, I don't think I'd ever want to leave. I mean, you don't have to recruit. You get to go home at 3:00 every day, and you only work about 6-7 months out of the year. So it was always going to be a tough pull. I always questioned whether he was still going to have the fire to want to get out and recruit, but I always trusted Hugh there. I always trusted Hugh because the pressure's on him after this, perceived a little bit of a on-field setback at 6-7. You knew how important this upcoming year was. So I was good with if it was going to be Chris Kiffin. I was going to get fired up. I was going to bug because I kind of felt like, he's going to hit the trail hard with Hugh. And then you couple him with Charles Kelly, and that could be a dynamic team. But the guy that I wanted was also the guy that Nick Saban wanted before he retired. DJ Durkin would have been your defensive coordinator at Alabama had Saban not made the last-minute decision to, call it quits and hang it up. They were pushing hard for him. He hired him shortly after he was let go from Maryland as sort of like a defensive consultant. It was late in the process, so he couldn't really hire him as an on-field coach. So he hired him sort of as a consultant, a defensive consultant, grad assistant, whatever you want to call it. Very, very well-respected defensive coach. Had a ton of success at Florida. Had a great year as a defensive coordinator at Michigan. He improved the Ole Miss defense incredibly under Lane Kiffin the first 2 seasons. He took over. That roster was a mess. They were a mess. He takes them from 14th in scoring defense all the way to 8th in one season. Then, the toxic environment that is working for Lane Kiffin, he gets out of there, goes to work at Texas A&M, has 2 great years after Mike Elko leaves to go to Duke. He's there 2 years. The defense was not the issue there. The defense was not the issue. And not only was the defense good, they were good with no help from the offense. Texas A&M's offense the last 2 years was putrid. Now, some of that was injuries with quarterbacks and things like that, but most of it was just the dinosaur offense that Jimbo Fisher ran it all the way until he ran right out of a job. So, but the constant there, now they had a great roster and they recruited well, but you still got to produce. And DJ Durkin was fantastic at Texas A&M, and now you're going to bring him in to Auburn. And sort of make this staff, like, be the finishing piece on this staff that is an absolute all-star staff, from recruiting to development to, on the field results. I just don't think you could assemble a much better staff than what Auburn has on defense from top to bottom. I mean, it's very exciting. This is big. I think Hugh really had to fight for DJ. Unfortunately, there's still some stuff hanging. Some of it I get, most of it I don't, from the tragedy that happened in 2008. I just don't feel like, although it was a tragedy, that you shouldn't be brandished as that is who you are, for the rest of your life, especially when you were found to not have any involvement whatsoever. You were let go with your whole buyout. In other words, it was found that you'd had nothing to do with any of it. So again, he fought for him, and adding him to this staff is just absolutely massive. Let's just talk about it for a second, okay? Up front, you have Jeremy Garrett, who signed an unbelievable defensive line class in his first year. He got a 5-star defensive end in Amaris Williams. And then you got your 2 or 3 guys on the interior coming off the year prior. And then you look at the development from the defensive line, and you see Keldrick Falk and him be able to blossom as a freshman. You see Marcus Harris take his game to a completely different level. You got all that going on. And then for 2025, you already have 4 incredibly highly rated, big defensive linemen. We're talking beef, the epitome of hulking super teens. Jeremy Garrett is a blossoming star. It'll be really hard to keep him much longer than past this year, because there are going to be defensive coordinator spots, I feel like, thrown at this guy, or big time money, people coming after him to be their defensive line coach, because he is an absolute budding star, like absolute star. Then you got another budding star, Josh Aldridge, who just signed possibly the best linebacker class in the history of Auburn. And not only that, you see Eugene Asante, who couldn't even make it off of the practice squad, for the previous staff, is now, we were worried he was going to go to the NFL after one season. You had some bad luck with Austin Keys and his injury, but he looked great, got him out of the portal. He's going to be a big factor this year. And then you throw these young guys in, man, oh man. And then the outside linebackers also, the freshman class that he brought in. You have your Jamonta Waller, and then you have your Joseph Phillips, guys that can play multiple positions at linebacker, just star-studded, and you're already seeing Auburn in the mix with some big names at linebacker for 2025. So Josh Aldridge, he could have gotten the UCF defensive coordinator job for Gus, and he's that caliber. He's that caliber of a guy that every single year, there's going to be schools coming at him to be a defensive coordinator. We're going to lose him eventually, but for now, you got him for another year, hitting the road, recruiting hard, and developing these linebackers and pass rushers. Absolutely phenomenal. You got Crime, Wesley McGriff, seasoned veteran, another guy that just relationships. Dude just knows how to create relationships. He knows how to recruit these kids. He knows how to just how to have that connection. And you got him again. He's also had NFL experience as a defensive backs coach. I mean, so you got the development aspect and the recruiting aspect. You had Charles Kelly into the mix. What else can you say about Charles Kelly? I mean, you just Google Charles Kelly and all-time commit list and then put on your sunglasses because there's stars everywhere. There's stars everywhere. And now he's going to be finally home at Auburn where he played. And, where he may want to retire. He may be a guy that just may never want to leave, and he's going to give everything he's got for the Auburn Tigers. So another great recruiter, great developer. Guy spent several years working for Nick Saban, worked with Mark Stoops a lot at Florida State, just been around a lot of great defensive coaches. And he's going to be a massive asset. And then finally you cap it all off with your with DJ Durkin, who's got some familiarity a little bit. He was at Ole Miss, I believe, as a linebackers coach. Before he was with, I don't know if he was under Hugh. I think he would have been under Hugh, but I think he was actually under his gosh, what is his name? The guy that took over right after Hugh. His name, I'm losing his name for a second. The offensive line coach who became a head coach. Maybe I'm wrong. I may be missing some details there, but you add him, wealth of experience in the SEC. Spent a lot of time at Florida, a lot of time at Ole Miss, Texas A&M. So just a huge addition. And again, I had the heart to heart the other last week about the whole DJ Durkin incident at Maryland. And I just encourage you to not look at sound bites, not look at zingers on Twitter. Don't worry about trying to win the Twitter war. Don't worry about trying to win the group text war. Okay. Do your research. It doesn't take long, and you'll find out, number one, you cannot fire a guy for cause, and you don't fire a guy for cause who's responsible for something and then pay him their full buyout. Number two, coaches are not typically involved in summer workouts. That's just not the head coach's deal. That's your strength and conditioning coach. And then number three, did he request the extra medical assistance, extra medical staff, and was denied? Look all that up. It doesn't take long to look it up. I don't care about toxic this, toxic that. That's code word for I don't want to work very hard. He's a hard coach. I don't want to work hard. Okay. That's never been an issue anywhere other than the one spot he was at. And again, what happened was awful, but look, do your research. Don't worry about trying to win. Don't worry about what other teams are going to have to say, because those teams, those fans, their coaches more than likely vetted him out and were looking at hiring him. Okay. Again, Alabama, first of all, they hired him immediately after the incident in Maryland, after he was let go. And then they tried to hire him again before Nick Saban retired. So if it's Alabama fans you're worried about, they tried to hire him. They've hired him once and tried to hire him again. Okay. So look, do your research. Absolutely fantastic hire, fantastic defensive staff. Could not be more excited about this defensive staff, top to bottom. The Boog bounce back week we needed. This is what we needed. We needed it after we had the 2 basketball losses, after we, seemingly watched Ryan Williams recommit to the school he's been committed for 3 years, and it was supposedly a big loss. Uh, we had to watch all this happen. Not a lot of positive momentum on the defensive coordinator search. We needed to bounce back, and we got it. Let's be fired up. Let's get fired up over this because we got us a great defensive staff. All right, before we just go ahead and continue this bug on and look at the roster, and are we better defensively now that essentially all the signings are over before spring, high school's done, portal's done. Are we better now going into spring defensively, and are we better going into spring offensively? But before we do that, let's give a shout out to plainscoffee.com. Use coupon code BUTTON for 10% off. Look, you can go to Sam's Club, you can go to wherever you want to go, and you can stock up on old warehouse coffee that's been sitting in the warehouse for months and weeks, or you can have your coffee freshly ground the day before it ships. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Check out plainscoffee.com, save 10%, and you can get all different kinds of coffee. You can get the Colombian, you can get the dark roast, you can get the medium roast, you can get the light roast. And if you don't like coffee, you can get teas. They have teas as well. So check them out, show them some love, use coupon code BUTTON, and then save some money while you're at it. So plainscoffee.com. All right. Since we've had a little bit of defensive flavor, let's just keep it going. Let's just keep it going. All right. We had a fairly, I would say, a very competitive, I think that's the best word to describe it, competitive defense last year. They took huge strides from the year prior. The defense most of the year was not the issue really ever. And a lot of times when they did have issues, it was because they were just continuously left out to dry by the offense. So imagining that we could be better defensively than last year is kind of tough because I feel like we played really, really well. We're losing some guys that are going to play on Sundays as well. So just start at the bottom, defensive line. Marcus Harris is going to be a big loss, okay, because he was the most disruptive. He was the most he gave you the most punch, the most I can make a tackle for loss. I can, he was a lot of times he was some of your biggest pass rush, and it was from the interior, and he's gone. He's going to take his, chances and see what happens in the NFL. And I don't feel like on the interior you necessarily brought in anybody that can replicate what Marcus did, as many snaps as he did throughout the game. I don't know that you necessarily brought in anybody at that caliber right away. But that does not necessarily mean that you can't be disruptive, that you can't make plays in other ways. Okay, so you got Keldrick Falk, who's an absolute freak, who's going to have another year of development. I don't necessarily think he's going to move into that Marcus Harris role, but from his regular role at defensive end, he's an absolute monster. And now you just got another year of him getting better and better and better, working under Jeremy Garrett. I think with the players you added, you maybe can get similar production, maybe even better, if some of the guys you brought in, like a Trill Carter, can play that true nose and let Jason Jones play the Marcus Harris position. You can move guys around. You may get one of these younger guys that can make some plays. You possibly have, let's just say you have maybe a more athletic, a more talented defensive line this year. You can look at it just from a sheer star perspective this year than you did last year. I like the 2 additions in the portal. Trill Carter, a guy that can play the Marcus Harris role, maybe could slide over, play a little head up nose, free Jason Jones up. And then you got Gage Keys, who can play maybe multiple positions, maybe not necessarily be a superstar, but a guy that can be very, very effective and then can sub in. You maybe not see just a massive drop off. So, no, I don't think that if you go position by position, I don't think we have anybody that can necessarily outperform what Marcus Harris did. But as a collective group, I think we can be a better defensive line than we were last year. Linebackers, I Austin Keys being out most of the season really, really hurt us because I think, we loved Eugene Asante, but I think Austin Keys was probably our best linebacker, our most talented linebacker on the roster. So you get Keys back, you get Asante back, which was a big win to keep him from going to the NFL, and then you got all of these young freaks coming in that can play anywhere. You got Demarcus Riddick, who they're going to have to tranquilize this child to keep him off the field because he's an absolute monster. He was a monster in bowl practices. He's a monster early in workouts. Like, he was so good and so fast in bowl practices. They're like, man, should we put him at safety? Like, give him a shot at safety? Like, the kid's one of the fastest players on the field. Like, you got that caliber athlete at 6'2", 6'3", 220, that can play linebacker and, maybe even, play some safety at times. I don't necessarily think he's going to play safety, but he's that athletic. He's that athletic. So you got a linebacker room. I'm going to say it's going to be a better linebacker room. I feel like your third linebacker at Dorian Miosi is going to be better than your third linebacker from this past season. So I love the linebacker room. Corner. Okay. So corner may be the first position that you can say could possibly take a step back. Okay. And what's funny is, but from a recruiting standpoint, it's insanely higher rated. Okay. So DJ James and Nehemiah Pritchett were both 3-star in-state guys. DJ goes to Oregon. Nehemiah obviously comes to Auburn, but both of them developed very well. They have great measurables, and they're both going to be NFL players. They're both going to test really well at the combine. They're probably both going to perform really well this week at the Senior Bowl, and they're both going to get drafted. So obviously, you've got to think you're going to take a step down, but you're adding Kayin Lee, who it was hard to keep him off the field this year, a top 150, top 200 type, high 4-star player from Georgia, and then going into his second year. And then Antonio Kite, who when he was coming out in 2022, he would have been the highest rated commit of our whole class, our whole recruiting class. Okay. So you're adding a top two, essentially. You got two top 150, top 200 type players on both sides, and then you have Keontae Scott coming back as well. So, he's not necessarily an outside corner. He could be your nickel guy. He could be your outside guy, and maybe one of the other guys plays nickel. But regardless, so you feel like from an NFL perspective, NFL ready perspective, you may have taken a step back, but from a recruiting perspective, from a ranking perspective out of high school, you have a vastly more talented on paper corner room, and then not to mention your guys like Jay Crawford and Amon Lane Gaines coming in, guys that can play nickel or corner that are extremely highly rated. So yes, you may take a slight step back. You may take a slight step back from like ready-made talent, NFL talent ready to go, but the potential may be vastly higher. The potential there, the higher end may be vastly higher. So excited to see how these young corners, nickels, how all this plays out. I think you got you're very, very rich on recruited, like high recruiting talent, high recruiting ranking talent, and that'll be fun to watch play out. Safety room. Um, when we lost Jalen Simpson, I was concerned that that would be a that I just didn't know that you're going to be able to find somebody to replace the production that Jalen Simpson gave you, because he was an absolute superstar. He's a guy that truly played his way, I think, into the NFL this past year. He started off the game like an interception for the first 4 games, and then you had Zion Puckett, who, we probably scratched our heads at times and we were, frustrated at times, but it's because he played so much. He played so many snaps because there's nobody else really that was ready behind him to play. I think you had him spelled a few times with Caleb Wooden, but none of the other young guys really got in. So Zion was on the field for every single snap. I think if you look, he may have played more snaps than any player on the defense. He was an Iron Man. So that in and of itself is going to be tough to replace. Just somebody that's, that knows how to, make plays, knows how to, I guess, play that position in the SEC and then play it and have the conditioning to play it and not come off the field. So you got those 2 guys, you lose both of those guys, and you have essentially nothing but young, unproven guys that are coming back. You had Sylvester Smith, who had a great bowl game. You got Tyler Scott. You have Colton Hood. You got a lot of these young guys, and then you have a very talented freshman class coming in, but you just didn't have that. You did not have that Jalen Simpson experience. You got Laquan Robinson, who's a head buster from junior college, but you just never know how that transition works. I feel like he's going to be on the field day one. So they go out and you add Jaron Thompson, who is about as close, I think, as you can get to Jalen Simpson without being Jalen Simpson himself. Okay. Where Jalen Simpson excels athletically over Jaron Thompson excels with experience. He's played a ton of football games. He's played a ton of college football. He's going into his 5th year. He had 3 interceptions last year, one big game-sealing one against Alabama. This isn't like it was just some backup dude. This is a guy that's played hard at Texas for 4 years, and he's going to bring a wealth of experience into the defensive backfield. He's the perfect final piece to add. So all in all, from top to bottom, no bug. Just take what I've gone. Just take everything I've gone through. You're going to have, I feel like, a better athletic defense than you had the year prior. Now, could you take a step back on the in the secondary? Sure. Could you take a step back, possibly growing pains at corner? Sure. But when you got the defensive line like it's at, you got another year of Jalen McLeod at edge with your 2 young guys, and then you got that stacked top head, the starting 3 linebackers. Your 1, 2, and 3 linebacker are dudes that have played a lot of football, and then you got these young studs. Your front 7 are going to be very, very good, and then you throw in Jaron Thompson with the experience of safety. I just think top to bottom, you're going to have a better chance at a better defensive roster than you had the year prior. And then, from a defensive play calling standpoint, I think it's probably going to be a wash to maybe a slight upgrade with DJ Durkin. So overall, I think you could probably have a better defense top to bottom than you had the year prior if those young, talented corners perform to their rankings. So something to be excited about. Offense. Look, you can just we can go a million different directions with offense, okay? But bottom line is there's nothing you can compare. There's nobody out there that you can compare to being a better play caller that you could go get than you got with Hugh Freeze. And it's already out. He is going to be your primary play caller. He's going to be your captain. Everything's going to run through him. Everything's going to run through Hugh Freeze. Right there, you got better. right there, you got better. No matter what you add on the roster, you know, you you know right off the bat when you start from game one, from practice for one, you know you're on a better road for offense than you were the year prior. And you don't have to, you don't really have to look further than just look at the way some of the different games played out when it was clear that Hugh Freeze had the play sheet. The play sheet was in front of his mouth. He was calling plays. You can look at how the offense looked against, Alabama at times, how the offense looked against Georgia, the running game, how we were able to run and mix in just enough passing to be effective. And then a few of those SEC road games where we kind of just really put it together and started throwing the ball down the field, throwing it around. I just think when he's the ultimate driver, uh, there's not many play callers out there that are better than him. Really, and it's been that way his whole career. He's just a offensive mind, a guy that just he's a feel type play caller, got to be in a rhythm. It's hard to just pick up in the middle of the game or pick up in the middle of a season. It's something that when it's his and it's growing and flowing through him, he's one of the best. He's one of the best in the college game. So right off the bat, you know you're going to be in such a better position because Hugh Freeze is calling plays. I know I did play calling last with defense, but you can't start talking about the offense and the track they're going to be on without pointing out the fact that Hugh Freeze is going to be your captain. He's going to be the one calling the plays, slinging the ball down the field. So right there, you got to be excited. Offensive line, I think the offensive line has an opportunity to be exponentially better than last year. Connor Lew, one more year. He was already blossoming towards the end of the year. He's absolutely unbelievable. You get to have him for at least, no, you're not going to have him longer than 2 more years, but at least 2 more years at center. You added Percy Lewis from the portal, which makes 2 more positions on your offensive line better because Dylan Wade's going to slide in. And more than likely, he's going to displace one of the better guards to the other side, whichever one they decide. And then you got Too Tall on the right side that can compete with, a Tyler Johnson and is it Dylan Alfred? The guy, the JUCO All-American that you brought in. So you got options, and adding Percy Lewis, if he stays healthy, man, what it does to this offensive line. You could have a unbelievably good offensive line. You look at last year, I think that I saw a stat that said it rated like the top 50 or in the country or something like that in percentage of failed run plays. In other words, how many times did our run plays, the blocks were the blocking assignments were failed as an offensive line, which caused the run not to necessarily work work at the I guess work at the level that they would consider it a pass or a fail. Okay, so in run plays, Auburn's offensive line was like 6th in the country in percentage of failed run plays. Just almost never missed assignments. That's how good of an offensive line coach Jake Thornton is. And it's they get the vast majority of those guys are coming back. And then you just add, like I said, add Percy, and it just makes that whole line better. So very excited about offensive line. Running backs, you kept everybody. You didn't lose anybody. You didn't add anybody because you didn't have to. You didn't lose anybody. You almost lost your Brian Battie. He went in the portal, but he ultimately came back. That's your kickoff returner now. You're a change of pace guy that when he got in, he did really well. And then you got your 3 bell cows. I don't know how you're going to give them carries. I don't know how you're going to keep Jeremiah Cobb off the field. I don't know how you're going to keep Austin off the field. And then Jarquez, who's your man, who hopefully he's he's going to take his leadership role seriously this year, and he's going to be ready to go game one. and we're just going to move forward. That running back room is going to be so strong. So probably the strongest group of the whole team. So that is very exciting, and I just hope that it would be hard to imagine that. I just don't know how you keep everybody happy. Like, could somebody leave after spring? Wouldn't shock me. I hope that doesn't happen. But man, that is a talented, talented running back room. I just hope everybody stays healthy. Damari Alston got banged up a little bit last year. But if somebody does, you're so deep, you got somebody right there ready to step in. So what a great running back room that we have. Wide receivers, I mean, there's nowhere to go but up. There's nowhere to go but up. They were, um, you know, honestly, a little kind of pitiful last year. So I would say, without a doubt, the worst wide receiver group in the SEC, and a lot of those were transfers, late spring additions that either were missed evals or there just wasn't anybody there. Bad luck with injuries with Jair Shorter and Nick Mardner both got banged up, and then guys that have been here for a while, particularly on the outside, that just haven't taken that next step with, Coy Moore, Camden Brown. Your slot guys have always kind of been there. Your Jay Fairs has always been a good player. You lose Javarius Johnson. So Jay Fairs coming back. You got Caleb Burton, who showed flashes at times, but there's got to be help on the outside. It can't just be, you can't run your whole offense with no threat on the outside and then just throw it to your slot guys. Like, you can't do that, because then you just leave one-on-one coverage on the outside because they can't win their battles, and then crowd up the middle of the field, and it just makes it tough. So you add, the minute this child steps on campus, he is the best receiver in the room, and that's Cam Coleman. He's that good. He's so good. I did a whole segment on him. You're talking, finally, you got a guy who it's not hoping and wishing. He's done it at the highest level in Alabama. He's done it at the highest level in the All-Star games. And now he's gotten bumped all the way up to the number 3 overall player, not wide receiver, player in the whole country. We have 50 states, and then there's high schools in all those 50 states. You take all those kids, and you spread and you give them all a ranking. He's number 3 in the whole country. Okay, I don't even know how many high school players that is. It's a crap load of them, and he's the number 3 of all of them. He's going to be absolutely unbelievable in this offense. A true outside wide receiver that's going to be 6'3", 190 to 200 pounds, that can go up over you, can go around you, and then he can run by you. And just adding him, if he can stay healthy, what that does to the offense and the pressure it takes off of everybody else is incredible. It's invaluable. You got Bryce Kane, unbelievable slot guy. That gives you a whole nother dimension of speed, and hands. Like, had over 1,300 yards receiving. Like, he's just a freak. He's here early. And then you got your Perry Thompsons and your Malcolm Simmons, dudes that can score from anywhere on the field. You're going to be young. But you're going to be the most talented you've been probably since maybe the early 2000s. Maybe that 1 year of Duke and Sammy Coates, 2014, that was a pretty solid 1-2 punch. But you got a room now that is just going to be incredibly, incredibly talented. You go from there, you go to tight ends. You got Rivaldo back. You got every tight end that's like ever played at Auburn comes back this year. You got like 5 tight ends, dudes that are great in the run, great at pushing the pile, great at getting some forward momentum in the run game. And then you got your big man Rivaldo Fairweather, who's an NFL tight end. He had a few drops last year, but a guy that if you can, he was the leading receiver. He's a guy that if you can at least give another possible weapon opposed to him on the field at the same time, if you got options, and then you got him out there who can run faster than a lot of DBs, and he's 6'5", 240, 250. That's That's a freaky, freaky weapon you got there. And when you can't just key in on him 100%, what can he possibly do? And then you have obviously the most controversial, I guess, the most talked about room is the quarterback room. The quarterback room, and I understand where everyone's coming from. I get where you're coming from on Peyton Thorne. I totally get it. There were times where I was incredibly frustrated. There was times where I was disgusted, quite frankly. Um, but again, I cannot decide. I haven't been able to pinpoint yet. Is it just purely Peyton Thorne, or was it the whole situation of uh, the way the offense was back and forth, the way it was, supposed to be handed off to Philip Montgomery, and then the whole relationship between him and Hugh in the passing back and forth? Because there were times when he was very effective. There was times when he looked super confident running the ball. There was times when he looked super confident ripping it down the field, and then there was times where he would throw interceptions that are just absolutely inexcusable. So, with all that being said, does that just necessarily mean he can't be better? Does that mean that when with Hugh as the 100% captain of the offense, running him one more full spring and summer through just his system, does that mean that it's impossible for him to get better and maybe get back to some of that, 2022, 2021 form that he had at Michigan State? It's not impossible. It's not impossible. And it's also not impossible that we don't run through spring and see what happens. And we may lose a guy to the portal, and we may pick up a guy from the portal to add to the room. So, and then you got the mystery around Hank Brown and what he could possibly be. I mean, he's already got the size, and we saw him show a little bit of spark in the bowl game. Was that a flash in the pan type thing, or is that something that can be built off of? So probably the only group I feel like that you have a big question mark around is probably the quarterback room, and most of that, um, I can't quite make up my mind if it's the quarterbacks on the roster or if it's uh, or was it the whole offensive situation from last year? Um, so that's going to be very interesting to watch in spring. So if you really look at it, I think overall from the defensive side, you got your rock star defensive staff, and then I just think you're more talented. I think you're more athletic on defense than you were last year, and then on offense, by default, you're going to be better because your offense is going to have an identity, and it's going to be running through one guy. And that one guy is one of the best play callers, offensive play callers that's, in college football. In college football. If you can shore up the question mark and be serviceable at quarterback, between all your other skill guys, your new young skill guys, your running back room, your tight ends, you can be a pretty potent offense. And I mean, you can't be worse. You can't be worse. So I feel like by default, you got a top to bottom better team. We didn't even go into special teams, but top to bottom, I think you got a potential for a lot of booging this upcoming football season. So let's see how the spring plays out. We're inevitably going to lose some folks, and then for sure we're going to add some folks too. So we talked about Will Redmond, the new player personnel GM. He's going to kind of have a chance to earn some of his earn his stripes, for lack of no pun intended. There earn some stripes in the spring with his evals and guys that he can little pieces that he can pick and add and replace. Because again, I think it's college football. That's college football now. You're going to lose some dudes after spring, so I'm pumped. We got our bug bounce back. DJ Durkin hire. That's a big hire. That's great for Auburn, and I am so ready for spring football. More than I've been in a long, long time. So, y'all have a great week. We'll see what shakes out in the headlines for the rest of the week, and we'll get back on Thursday and keep the bug going. Hopefully, we got a big basketball win. we can talk about a bounce back win that we can talk about, and we'll just keep it rolling. So I appreciate it. This is episode 14 of the Top Button Podcast. Thanks for listening. Stay buttoned.